All right, we're back here on SportsLine. Again, our phone lines are open tonight, and we have an open bank right now for you to call in and be a part of the show. 737-7767 is the number. Just call us up, and we'll talk about anything you want to talk about tonight here on the program. We have been talking about the Titans. They report a week from Friday at St. Thomas Sports Park on the field for the first time the next day, 2:30 in the afternoon in the heat at St. Thomas Sports Park. First practice, it will be open to the public, as many of their training camp practices are. They'll also be out there the next day, Sunday, July the 30th, same time, 2:30 in the afternoon, for fans who are interested in going. They've got a couple practices later on in the month. I believe it's the 16th and 17th, where they will have co-practices with the Carolina Panthers ahead of their Week 2 preseason game here at Nissan Stadium. So it's going to be an interesting first couple of weeks of the training camp of this year. And I think there are a lot of things to watch for with this team, which is fun because, again, you're talking about a team that there's some belief that they can be really good this year. They can compete in the AFC South. They can get to the playoffs for the first time since 2008. People are going to want to see Marcus Mariota. He'll get turned loose in training camp. He'll have to put pads on. There will be people flying around at his feet in training camp. They're not going to hit him, or at least they're certainly going to try to not hit him. But he'll have to deal with traffic and people around him for the first time since he broke that leg against Jacksonville back in December. How does he respond? Is he ready to let it go and run when he needs to? How does he look? Is there any rust from not being 100% throughout the course of the offseason? He's been really good at the start of training camp each of the last couple of years. Can he pick up from there and be even better in year 3? We'll get a little taste of that in training camp. This offensive line, can it continue to gel together? And maybe most importantly, through training camp, can it stay healthy? Remember, a year ago, it was actually during OTAs or minicamp, but Byron Bell, who was penciled in to be a starter for this team, went down. And that seemed to be a big blow for an offensive line that at the time, you were talking about a new right tackle, you were talking about a new center, you were talking about at least one new guard. And Byron Bell goes down. Turned out that it was okay. They figured out how to piece together that offensive line just fine. But keeping that O-line healthy will be important. The wide receiver position. How does Eric Decker look coming off a couple of surgeries from last year? Corey Davis, Taywan Taylor, your rookies out there. How quickly do they jump into the fray? A year ago, Tajay Sharp was the revelation of training camp in a lot of ways because of how consistently he performed day in and day out in the August heat. Where does he fit into the mix this year? And how about the rookies this year? More is expected of Davis and Taylor. Can they come in and make a similar impact right away? And do they have the lasting power that maybe escaped Sharp at times last year? He was very good out of the gate, but perhaps hit a rookie wall somewhere in there as well and didn't quite carry that performance throughout the entire course of the regular season. Defensively, I think they have the makings to have a really good front seven on the defensive side of the ball. Do they show that in training camp? What are the matches like between that defensive line and offensive line once they get the pads on? I'm really fascinated to see Kevin Dodd, who last year was the very first pick of the second round, number 33 overall by the Titans. He's a guy that wreaked havoc on the defense for Clemson in college. High hopes for him to be sort of the next great outside pass rusher in this 3-4 defense of Dick LeBeau. You got two pretty good ones right now in Brian Arakpo and Derek Morgan, but both of those guys are veterans. They've been around for a while, won't be around forever. And both of those guys, during their career, have had some injury issues. You'd love to have somebody there that, one, just keeps them fresh, can come in and give you another big-time pass rushing threat that means you don't have to have those guys on the field at all times. But also, you want somebody there to be able to replace them if they go down. and ready to replace them when they move on, whenever that time may be. And the Titans believe in their scouting department and where they drafted Kevin Dodd, that he's that guy. But a year ago, the foot injury and the surgery and the recovery and the rehab multiple times, that foot never got right. And he had to have it cleaned up again this offseason. They believe he will finally be ready to go when training camp starts this year. But now you're talking about over a year and a half since he really played meaningful football for the last time. Because whatever he did last year for the Titans just wasn't what he can be. And it wasn't 100%, and it wasn't up to his standards. So what do we see from Kevin Dodd in training camp this year? Can he be the guy that they drafted him to be? We'll find out. Maybe we'll start to get some of those answers during training camp, but he is going to be a guy that when he's out there, I'm going to have my eyes on him because I want to see what he can do at this level when healthy. I want to see the explosion. I want to see the physicality and where he is in relation to the ball and in relation to the quarterback, what kind of an impact he makes. And then I look at the secondary, which to me has been so woeful for the past several years for the Titans. They have been unable to come up with really anyone to play opposite Jason McCourty and help them shut down opposing teams' passing games. Well, now McCourty's gone. Parrish Cox is gone. Other guys who've played on that side basically gone at this point. In is Logan Ryan, a two-time Super Bowl champion with New England, one of the better cornerbacks in the league. You drafted Dory Jackson in the first round, 18th overall. LaShawn Sims got valuable reps late last season in the lineup for this Titans team and performed pretty well at this time. Is he the guy who's likely your slot corner this year? You have some other guys who can battle. Kalen Reed, Bryce McCain, guys like that. How does that secondary look? And then you talk about the safety position. Jonathan Cyprien coming in from Jacksonville. Kalen Reed performed so well last year that they let that secondary position kind of walk in free agency. Damian Stafford left. Rashad Johnson not back this year for the Titans. How does that secondary look? And how quickly can they mesh together? Because of all those guys we talk about, if it's Ryan, Jackson, Cyprien, and Byard, only Byard played last year, and usually not as a starter. Denoris Cersei is also there. What's his role with this team? But how quickly that secondary can come together and the impact they can have for the defense will be huge for this team. Because like I said, I think up front, if they stay healthy especially, that front seven is going to be formidable. It's going to be a defense that will give people problems up front. The problem is the secondary has been so porous in the back that if you don't get to the quarterback, you're in trouble. So now this is the team that looks like it should be able to stuff the run, looks like it should be able to attack opposing quarterbacks. If they can hold up in the back end, that means Dick LeBeau can now get creative with what he does defensively. And that could be scary for the rest of the NFL. So that secondary to me is a huge difference between making this defense a defense that will be good, solid up front regardless, and potentially making it one of the best defenses in the National Football League. The other big question to me about the Titans heading into training camp is special teams. We saw it last year with the exception of the kickers. Ryan Suckup, who's hit 33 consecutive field goals from inside 50 yards. and Brett Kern, who again was very solid punting the football last year, the Titans were atrocious on special teams last year. Return game, the kicking game, punting game, coverage teams, they just weren't very good. They put a lot into their off-season signings in free agency to trying to make this better. Trawick, Bates, Eric Weems coming in as a return man. Adoree Jackson's a guy who probably will see some time returning punts for this team this year. John Robinson didn't like what he saw from the special teams last year, and he put an emphasis on it in how he built his team this year. He understands that special teams is an important part of the game. It changes field position. It changes games. And he put that emphasis on it this offseason. I don't think we'll get a great feel for the special teams in training camp because you just don't do much of it live. But that will be a question that gets answered perhaps some in the preseason games and then once we get into the regular season. But that's another big question to me for the Titans heading into this year. So many questions out there, so much progress a year ago, but now this year after 9-7, to keep the momentum going and to keep people happy, you got to get to the playoffs. You got to get to the playoffs this year, and they need to capitalize on some of those things. Phone lines are still open if you want to get in on the discussion. 737-7767 is our number. Our lines are open. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll hear from former Tennessee Vol and former Brentwood Academy standout Derek Barnett getting set for his first training camp with the Philadelphia Eagles. Back after this, you're watching SportsLine on News Channel 5+.